Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Rugby Bunker. Rejoined by Charlie Morgan. Charlie, are you refreshed? Are you well after your break?
I was, mate, and then I went for a run in slightly warmer temperatures here and looked like a beetroot. But hey, very excited to have Fiona. She's fantastic at what she does, and she'll give us a hell of a good overview ahead of the Women's Six Nations, I'm sure.
Yeah, apologies for anyone watching. I have a slightly more luminous on-brand background this week, as I'm not in the usual studio. It's just that time of year, Charlie. We just, we can do this from anywhere. In the Artemis 2, shooting around the moon, we could do this from there, maybe, with the right kind of internet connection.
Yeah, we'd be battling for the call-up, mate, in the first place, wouldn't we? Not astronauts.
I'd be incredibly concerned if they decided that we were the the candidates required. So yeah, as Charlie hinted, we're going to be chatting with Fiona Tomas from the Telegraph to preview the Women's Six Nations, which we'll get into in a bit. Charlie, just before we did that, I wondered if we could do like a minute or two just on Courtney Lawes' move to Sale, because obviously he wrote about it in your newspaper, in the Times, in his column, sort of the decisions why he's done it. And yeah, I'm really intrigued by it, because normally I would be a little bit skeptical about how much you could get out of a 37-year-old forward and how much they could deliver. But Lawes has kind of always been this freak athlete, and actually I wonder if we might be able to see a real kind of impactful string of performances from him at Sale. And does that open the door for England? I mean, possibly, could be.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see how that goes. I think it's very opportunistic stuff from Sale, quite smart. They kind of notoriously have been in the market for back five forwards, haven't they? And they missed out on Chandler Cunningham South. Picked up Christians, so they're going to bolster that area. But it sort of sounds like it all came together very late, from what Lawes was saying himself. And that the existing relationship with Doreen West was very important. I think there are many reasons why it might not work. As you say, he's getting on a bit. Courtney Lawes, he's been in second tier of French rugby, which seems to be a very sort of attritional kind of competition. Done that for a couple of years, which is clearly a step down from where he left off, which was the World Cup. But what I keep going back to in my head is that tournament, and the fact that had Peter Steph Toy not gone off in the final of this whole tournament, he would have been in a shoe-in for a World 15. Lawes was sensational in that tournament. He was clearly a huge line-out presence, as he always is. His jackling, if you can remember, was out of all the breakdown scavengers in the whole tournament, he was right up there. There were flagship performances throughout that season from him. I remember I've just been writing about Northampton, and the semi-final they lost in Croke Park. He was immense, absolutely immense. Almost dragged Saints to what would have been a really big upset win over Leinster. And I think the other thing, so that point is his class. If he can get anywhere near back to that, will be valuable for Sale and I think for England. Other 2 points would be he's a very skillful mentor. I think there's a lot of skill about his leadership, his soft skills. If not skill, then a real kind of innate feel for it, I think. And I think he's a very reassuring presence, which again will hugely help Sale. It will hugely help England if he comes in. And I think the third thing is to remember that a World Cup pre-season is unique in itself. He's going to end up being, is he a couple of years younger than Lawes anyway? And obviously he was 4 years younger than Lawes, but the shape that Bundy Aki got into for the last World Cup, I just remember thinking, geez, he was just phenomenal. So there are those three things. I wonder, and the context of England potentially going away from three open sides as well is interesting too. as we spoke about, they might have a look at a different sort of balance to that back row to kind of prioritise the line out, prioritise a bit of power, because we know that Courtney Lawes sort of enhanced his carrying. That was one of the kind of strings to his bow that he strengthened. So there's a lot going for him for sure. And I think England, we know Steve Borthwick values these veterans. You look at the sort of the way that Dan Cole was brought back into the fold, the way that George Ford is valued even if he's not playing, the way that Elliot Daly, same with him. He wants to balance fresher faces with experience, and there's a lot of value. There's a lot of sense in that. And yeah, he's getting a Centurion back in the eligibility pool, as it were, and I think it will be very tempting.
Yeah, yeah, you're very right. Maybe more leaders, more kind of leadership voices in that group. Maybe that is something that post tournament they feel they were lacking. Post disastrous tournament, I should add. So yeah, he's a very interesting signing by Sale. I also wanted to plug your love letter to National One, not to necessarily get you to recap it, the whole thing, because I want people to go and read it on the Times, and I'll link it in the description. But obviously a very competitive league and a lot going on this season with a lot of teams in the scrap to try and come up to the champ.
Yeah, very kind, mate. Thank you. Yeah, just in the context of that, as the champ wants to strengthen, really interesting. Just loads of real clubs with a lot of heritage involved, which is really cool. Jeopardy at both ends with a really cool relegation battle going on as well. So yeah, a lot to like about that league.
Massively, mate. Well, listen, let's get into it with Fee, and yeah, let's try and unpack the Women's Six Nations. Right, Charlie, we have a very, very special guest this week ahead of the Women's Six Nations kicking off. We've roped in Fiona Tomas from the Telegraph. Hi, Fee. How are you?
Hey, Ben. I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Excited for this tournament to get underway. We wanted to not take up too much of your time because you're currently, for people listening to the podcast, you're sat in the luxurious surroundings of Pennyhill Park, aren't you, with the lovely kind of mahogany panelled backdrop. So I appreciate you've got stuff to do.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I wouldn't miss it. I think this is my Rugby Bunker debut, isn't it?
Oh, listen, Charlie, we need to come up with like a new caps system and start giving stuff to people, because we've had a few now through the doors.
No, and Fee's obviously an esteemed and highly anticipated addition, or an absolute legend. Who better to talk to a preview of the Six Nations with?
I mean, goodness me, absolutely.
Just wipe that tear out of my eye. Sorry.
It's like a Telegraph reunion, actually. I've just realised, because we've sort of moved on, but Fee, you're still there, and yeah, part of the coverage over the next few weeks. If we start, I think the best way to do this, so ahead of the tournament starting, if we ask a big question maybe about each team, and we can sort of discuss how we think they're going to do and their prospects going from there. But if we take a topic and lead in that way, I think that would be good. Should we start with England, and maybe, I mean, there's obvious ones about how long is this dominance going to continue on for, but I think I'm more intrigued by how they replace Abby Dow on the wing and sort of her try-scoring threat. Fee, if we start with you, there's a whole list of contenders, aren't there, to sort of fill that position?
He's obviously one of the, I guess, marquee players who the Red Roses are kind of, they're going to have to replace this time round. You've got, she was such an electric force of nature, wasn't she, for England over the years, and she's moved on to pastures new. I guess you've got Jess Breach and Claudia MacDonald are still your kind of two firm starting wingers when it comes to that position. Millie David's an exciting prospect, the young and up and coming winger for Bristol. Got a lot of experience at England under 20 level. Surprisingly, hasn't made the cut for the matchday squad against Ireland this weekend. But I'm sure we'll be seeing her at some point during the championship. I guess I'm sort of more interested in who's gonna step up in the pack in light of 4 high profile forwards in Zoe Stratford, Abby Ward, Rosie Gallagher and Lark Atkins-Davies all missing through pregnancy, which is amazing. Unprecedented for an English national women's sports team to kind of, see that many players missing through pregnancy, and it's great. And I think that's a really exciting challenge for England. I think a lot of teams will be looking at that pack, looking at the kind of changes that John Mitchell is going to, be forced into making this campaign. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how they go.
How cool that Abby Ward came back so strongly from that first spell of maternity leave, and obviously having her little girl on that, and how amazing was that in itself, but also how significant has that been to kind of pave the way?
I think it's huge. Like, Abby is she was so diligent in her approach when she came back. She planned her pregnancy from the off, always wanted a C-section. And, the fact that maternity policy was in place, it sort of gave her the confidence and the green light to be like, yeah, I can do this. And now, others are like looking at her and really, I know we use the word inspiration a lot in women's sport, and it does bug me a bit because we don't kind of ban that word about in the same way that we do in men's sport. But like, they have looked at Abby, and they've seen that it's possible. And it's great. Like, no other, apart from Jazz Joyce and Elisa Joyce, for Wales, who have also had a child since last year's championship. Like, there aren't any other or many other women's players who are kind of taking a leave. And it is so hard, isn't it, in between, World Cups and Six Nations campaigns and international series. Like, there's never a right time, is there? But I think that what the RFU have done in kind of implementing this policy, Abby was like the guinea pig, wasn't she? She openly said, I think, at one point last year that there were things that she thought could still be tweaked because she was the first one to live and breathe it. And the fact that she's sort of been honest with them and said, look, here are my suggestions to make it even better, I think has really kind of given hope to all the others who are now doing it. So it's brilliant, isn't it? It's amazing.
We should mention the kind of the way the tickets are selling for this opening game against Ireland. I think we're over 75,000 now, right? And hopefully with walk-ups on the day and with hype over the next few days, hopefully we'll get another sellout. I think that would be, I know this has been said elsewhere, but there was a time where the idea of an England women fixture selling out Twickenham, it was miles off this. And the fact that we've now reached this point is fantastic and shows actually the kind of momentum from the World Cup, as we hoped it would, it is continuing and hopefully will continue throughout the Six Nations.
Yeah, 100%. I think like to see that over 75,000 tickets have been sold for Saturday is awesome. Like, I think it will be kind of a near sellout, especially if the weather's good, a few late walk-ups and that. And like you said, Ben, I think it shows that, the Red Roses fan base, the sort of English women's rugby fan base hasn't faded at all since the World Cup. And that, like you said, that momentum, that interest is still there. So it's brilliant, and it's what the players deserve, isn't it? Like, I think Charlie and I have been to sort of many Red Roses matches through the years where, bumper crowds are starting to become the norm now, and it's brilliant to see. So yeah, long may it continue, really.
And so just to go back to your initial question, Ben, that with the actual squad and how England managed that churn, Fee's answer really reinforced just this really interesting, not even dilemma, but just moving on into a new World Cup cycle for England to still have the wingers of Jess Breach, Claude McDonald. Like, that's like excellence there. And it's, I am kind of, and you've written about it already, Fee, but who's going to give them the punch in the nose? Which side is going to put England in a compromising position where they're going to have to think on their feet, and where new leaders are going to have to potentially step up, or whether old leaders are going to have to dig deep potentially to find what their motivation is heading into a new World Cup cycle? That's what, it's not necessarily a question, but it's something that I'd really like to see.
Yeah, I think everyone else is asking that same question, Charlie. Like, England have so many kind of X factor players, don't they? And they have for so long. And you look across the board, you have, I look at Wales, for example. They really miss that sort of pace out in the backs, out wide. They've just never had it. And if we are to briefly touch on Wales, a lot of their players starting this weekend against Scotland, they have mostly played at Celtic Challenge level for Britain Thunder, which is brilliant, but it's not at the same standard of the PWR. And I love Sean Lynn. I think he's a brilliant coach. I think he's a brilliant people person. And I think there are a lot of people who'll be hoping that he can kind of bag his first Six Nations win this year. But in terms of who's going to give England a challenge, I think teams are scared of England. I think it's more of a psychological issue for the likes of France, who, for years have always been the bridesmaids and never the bride, and when Ellie Kildun gets that ball, people are scared of her. Like, she has this aura, which I think a lot of teams, might disagree, but I think for France especially, it's more of a psychological piece than a physical piece, because they have got the physicality there. They just need to last 80 minutes, and they haven't ever done against England in so long. So that was a really waffly response to your answer, but
You hit a key question for Wales as well, which is where their winners coming from. Should we hit up Scotland? Scotland were a team that have been sort of gradually more and more impressed by. They seem quite tough, well organised, and just kind of a team that you kind of they really emanate a togetherness. And how do you see their kind of championship going?
Scotland are an interesting one, because obviously they've got a new head coach in Fiona, the former head coach of the USA, who's come in. Interestingly, they brought in Eoin Cunningham as well in their backroom team, who obviously is former head of Wales. So there's been a lot of movement in the international coaching circle since the World Cup. It's I think Scotland are a bit of an unknown quantity, I think, because they're missing, obviously, like for a lot of teams who will be like in transition over the next few weeks for this campaign. Jade Conkle, I think their former captain, will be a big miss. She's now retired. They're missing Evie Gallagher as well in the back row. And Evie, shortlisted for Player of the Championship last time round, she's going to be a huge loss for them. Like, I really rate her as a number 8, and her energy is so important for Scotland and has been in recent years. But they've got quite I think, well drilled kind of back line, like you say. They have, I think, out of the home nations, probably in recent seasons come kind of closest to sort of emulating the sort of pace and the slickness that the Red Roses usually show when it comes to kind of turning on the firepower within the backs. So yeah, it'll be an interesting one, won't it? And Scotland Wales is always or Wales Scotland is always a bit of an arm wrestle, isn't it? So can't wait to see how that plays out at the Principality this weekend.
Yeah, massively. I think with Scotland, as you touched on, Fee, it's how much is that turnover in coaches and I guess players as well. How soon do they settle? How soon do they kind of? I think Rachel Malcolm was quite honest and open about that the other day, saying that it's a new cycle, and sort of hinting that it might not all run smoothly from the off. And they have this big date with England coming up next week at Murrayfield, which is going to be a landmark moment for Scottish women's sport overall, in terms of with the ticket sales. It's on track to be, I think, the highest sporting attendance for a women's standalone event in Scotland, which is awesome.
One thing it's worth also adding on Scotland is that they have been quite an unhappy camp for a while with regards to their own contract situation, and it's such a shame, because you see the likes of England pushing on, being the standard setters, bringing in these like ridiculous crowds, and it's I'm not sure what the latest is with regards to kind of where the SRU are on those contract negotiations, but it's such a shame that after a record-breaking World Cup, we're still getting these sort of ugly ugly narratives kind of peek through the surface in the women's game, because it's like, come on, guys, we just want a competitive women's Six Nations where, like Charlie said, we want teams to challenge England. We want there to be jeopardy, because especially after, like, you know, the mesmeric nature that we saw with the men's, with, you know, Ireland, Scotland, France all in contention on the final day. It was amazing, wasn't it? And we want that for the women's. But I think we're still a long way off it, sadly. I might be wrong.
This is stealing a point off two people, to be honest, off Fee herself, but also off. I remember Danny Kerr talking about a men's international England had lost a few years ago, and he said the thing about men's Test rugby at the minute is that if you are 4-5% off, you're going to lose. And I remember that was one of those things I thought that was actually sort of initially I thought that was kind of like, yeah, it's quite an easy thing to say. I'm not sure I buy that. But this Six Nations really reinforced that. And I think it's never been more true in the men's game. Whereas you could not say that at all. And I think some of the games that certainly with England, with Red Roses, some of the games they were winning, their back play wasn't anywhere near as sharp as it could have been, for instance. And it would almost be, and I'm sort of laboring this point a bit, but it would be good to see sides good enough, slick enough to punish that and punish them when they're a bit off it. Yeah, just to make the same point again.
No, I agree. I think the reality is that the Red Roses, I think, can operate at around 70%. They can be in second gear and still win. They could still grind out an ugly win. Do you know what I mean? And they've done that at various points, whether it's at the start of a championship, where they might be a bit rusty and connections might not be quite clicking. They might have a bad 40, but then have a really brilliant 40. And it's that sort of nature. Like, they're such a, winning is in their DNA. They just don't know how to lose, do they? And it's that which, like you say, I think needs to be kind of challenged a bit more.
One fun subplot with Scotland Wales, I guess, is that Wales have kind of taken Tyrone Holmes, who was Scotland's defence coach, and brought him into this new coaching staff that Sean Lynn has put together. And so I'm always interested if there's kind of little wrinkles and subplots that he's able to kind of tip off the rest of the Wales sort of coaching staff about Scotland. I thought Francesca McGee was one of the really cool stories of the World Cup, and her sort of try scoring feats in that pool stage, and sort of excited to see more of that. And yeah, Fee, you mentioned the Celtic Challenge earlier. I think that Scotland contract dispute, I've been writing about this for the Observer this week, and how Scotland kind of want to get their Scottish players back in Scotland, don't they, to play for the two sides and to compete in the Celtic Challenge, whereas actually, as you said, like because the standard isn't as strong, while that's like an admirable long-term aim, these players are probably better being based in the PWR or in France, unless, I guess, if you're some of the Wales players like Tui Pilotu, for example, who's sort of stuck behind Maud Muir at Gloucester Hartbury, and you're not playing. I guess that's the balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because obviously last week the Premiership Women's Rugby put out this big statement saying that they were accepting expressions of interest from other teams, across the home nations, to potentially join the league in future years. And there's been talk of that for a while. Obviously, it's something that's never quite come together in the men's domestic game, has it? But it might. The women might be leading the way on this front, maybe, and be the first to do it, by bringing in the likes of Brithen and the Irish Wolfhounds, who are a kind of a really tremendous outfit, who I think would probably hold their own in the PWR if they were there right now. And yeah, I mean, everyone wants what England have got, which is a really good world-leading domestic league, right? Where they can, where there is such a massive pool of talent to choose from. Like, you can see why John Mitchell signed on for another 4 years, because he's got like such a massive playing pool to choose from. Although he recently did say that he was a bit concerned by the number of kind of foreign players that are now in the PWR, and we've got to maybe watch it a bit. But yeah, I think it's hard, isn't it? Because ultimately, you want Ireland, Scotland, and Wales to have really strong domestic setups as well. But are they going to have to go the shortcut and just join the PWR? Maybe. Like, I think it would create some good competition anyway. So yeah, we'll wait and see.
Really quick one for Fee. Is the Lions job is being announced in the coming months, I think. Is it John Mitchell's if he wants it?
I think he's sort of
He's hinted, right?
Well, you're putting me on the spot now, but like he's got so many things going for him, hasn't he? Like World Cup winning coach, he's a New Zealander. He's never coached the Lions side, has he? You know, so you can imagine he always wants to reach the next level like his team do. So I would say he's a front runner. It's whether or not he wants the gig, I guess. You look around the women's game, who else could potentially be up there? I don't know. There aren't that many, are there? There's not a massive shortlist. So I think all eyes will be on him. I think it will be a massive surprise if he isn't. But then ultimately he's going to want it. Maybe he'll say something different after the Six Nations. Who knows? Depends how it goes.
What you're saying, Fee, is there could be an incredibly awkward situation if John Mitchell decides that he doesn't want it, and then who knows? Who knows has it? Who goes for it?
What I'm saying, Halsey, is that I think Charlie knows something, but I don't, and he's trying to pick my brains.
Okay.
You're overestimating me wildly. I have no idea.
Charlie Morgan, who broke the news that Alona Mar was coming to PWR, so he's one to watch. His CM, he's one to watch.
Ms. Flowers, that's very true. Should we chat about France, who got to semi-finals of the World Cup, lost to England? Kind of a fair bit of change from what I've seen in terms of lots of new faces in their opening side for the weekend. Where are they at?
Oh, France. Well, I mean, obviously they've got a lovely new head coach in Francois Ratier, who has a very strong CV in the women's game. Obviously guided Canada to the 2014 World Cup final, which feels like a very, very long time ago. And clearly the game was still in such a different place then compared to where it is now. But still, a great achievement nonetheless. He's French Canadian, speaks French and English. Obviously he'll be using a lot more of his French over the next few weeks. And he's won the French domestic league twice with Bordeaux. So the guy's obviously got it. And I think a lot of people were really happy when he was given the top job, because France have always kind of done this weird thing where they've split the head coach role with the women. You know, they've always gone for like a co-coach approach, which is, I've always found it quite strange. And maybe now that you've got someone at the helm, you know, who can maybe kind of guide them and suss out why they get so close, or have got so close to beating England kind of over the past 8 years and still can't get over the line. Like, is he the sort of final piece of the puzzle that can make France get over the line? I don't know. I hope so. He's a nice guy. I had a coughing fit in front of him at the Women's Six Nations launch, and I had to stop asking him questions because I just started coughing in front of him. And I was so embarrassed, and I was like, "Bye, Francois. I'll see you over the championship. I've got to go." And I was like, you turned to the next colleague, and I was like, "You ask a question." So that was my first interaction with him. Just ended up coughing over him. So
sounds like he was nice about it, and if so, he's I'm a big fan.
He was genuinely concerned for my well-being. Yeah.
I think there's certainly some coaches that I've interviewed that would have either found that funny or sort of quite enjoyed it, to be honest. So he's got my vote.
Oh yeah, well we'll see. Like, obviously England and France in Bordeaux on the last weekend, and it's such a gnarly place for the Red Roses to go, France. Like, the crowds are like proper hostile. It's such a cool atmosphere. They really get behind them. But England have always done it. They've kind of just shut out the noise in recent seasons. And if anything, I would argue that the gap has sort of widened a bit in recent years with France and England. Like England's improvement under John Mitchell over the past World Cup cycle has been like vast. You know, everyone thought, well, when he took over, like, how can this team get any better? But they have. Like, they're not a kind of one-dimensional side anymore. They've got superstars in their team, and you look at France. They've got Pauline, Bourdon Sansu's their kind of influential scrum half. I'm a big fan of Morgane Bourgeois, their fullback, who's got a really good boot on her. And they have got a hugely physical pack as well. It's just, can they last 80 minutes against England? Can they get those connections? Because I feel like something has always just been missing. I don't know what you feel about, Charlie, when you've been watching France-England duels. Like,
no, I would say the noise you made when Ben first mentioned France and the sort of groan would be pretty resonant for a lot of people that have watched them, right? Like they almost more than anybody else kind of have turned on periods of excellence on both sides of the ball for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, as opposed to putting that together over the course of a whole game, let alone a campaign. And in pockets, like, for example, the last game against Twickenham, against England at Twickenham in the last Six Nations, have shown that they can trouble the absolute very best. Not even trouble them, like tear them apart. And you're like, tie that together. And you wonder whether this the coaching change can be a catalyst, like coaching change has been for the men. And aligned everything, and sort of just made them a more consistent outfit. Because certainly with the men, it became lazy to sort of say, oh, which France are going to turn up, because they had a sort of consistent framework in place. And if that becomes the case with the women, then that's great, and we're going to get what we want from this tournament.
They've never had a kicking game to rival that of England's. And I think that's a massive part that's been missing. They've had a lot of change kind of through their fly halves, who've been kind of switching between the 7 circuit and coming back to 15s. And I feel like you just can't do that anymore, because the game has moved on. Like, the 15s game has moved on to such a degree that, you know, you have to really nail down who your 10 is going to be. Like England have. Like, England are blessed with so many kickers. You've got Aitchison, you've got Zoe Harrison, Ellie Kildun's got a boot on her. Helena Rowland, she can operate 10 fullback or in the centres, like anywhere. She'll do a job. So I feel like France don't quite have that interchangeability within their backs. So yeah, that's the sort of thing that's been missing, I would argue.
Fee, you've got a dash. I appreciate that you have actual work to do, but thank you very much for joining us.
See you later, guys.
Come back soon. Thanks, mate. Charlie, we can do Italy together, right? We can have a little chat about Italy. A few key retirements, and Bia Rigoni not being selected is a bit of an eyebrow raiser.
Yeah, curveball certainly, Rigoni. I think it seems like a classic beginning of a World Cup cycle sort of setup there, right? With a little bit of churn, but then they're going to have to sort of get up. You would imagine they're going to have to build impetus pretty quick, right? Because when significant calls like that have been made, you need a side to sort of feel confident in them. And a result, ideally early on, would be absolutely ideal.
Yeah, Rigoni's been such a key player for Sale in the last couple of years, and for Italy the last couple of World Cups. That is a slight surprise to not see the back involved. Look, opening weekend script up. Lovely to have Fee along with us. Charlie, are you going to be at Twickenham at Allianz Stadium on Saturday? I
am at Bath Friday night. So I'm not this time around, but I'll make sure to sort of tune in, because flagship fixture, first game for a World Cup World Cup holders, and Fee touched on it in one of her answers there. The fan base of the Red Roses just has been a real refreshing force in rugby union, I think, for the whole sport. I think that's fair to say. There's a real connection with the team. As I said twice during the chat to Fee, another reason why it will be interesting if England are sort of forced into sort of challenging situations in the tournament is how that fan base reacts. Because there will be a hell of a lot of expectation. There'll be people going along sort of for the first time and saying this is this utterly dominant side that always wins and wins well. And for that to not quite pan out, that will be interesting. But no, the team just came through as we were talking then, and the England team that is, and it just looks so recognisable. They're a couple of completely new and slightly more unfamiliar faces, but there is so much experience, so much pedigree to guide those new players through. Despite, there people talking about Fee there mentioned the sort of the churn in the forward pack and the turnover in the forward pack. I think that's really manageable. As good as those players are, as excellent as those players are, I just really expect England to still be the strongest by quite a way, and would be pleasantly surprised if they're not. Put it that way.
Yeah. And I mean, look, an expletive-filled reaction to the team as we just looked at it and realised how strong they're going to be, how strong they are. Ali, lovely to have you back. Thank you very much for your time, mate. And we will catch up after the opening round of the Women's Six Nations. But yeah, thanks everybody. We'll see you very soon.